So it's 4:16, so we're going to get going for our last presentation with MeloCat. How my cats optimize my lifestyle and vice versa. 10 cats, 1 MeloCat. When people come into our apartment, they are always impressed by how neat and clean she keeps it. We're going to find out more about that today. MeloCat is a cat rescuer and rehoming volunteer based in Hong Kong. As a small child, her parents noticed her ability to bond with cats, leading her mom to create the nickname MeloCat. By using her psychology background and thinking from the cat's perspective, she has created unique solutions to improve cats' lives. Her self-titled YouTube channel, MeloCat, explores her life in Hong Kong and experiences living with 10 adopted and rescued cats in a 550 square foot apartment. What sets apart MeloCat is her unique systems that help her not only save time, but create a better lifestyle for both cat and human. Her cat lifestyle course aims to help others create the same ecosystem in their own lives. Over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Melody, also known as MeloCat Online, and today I will share with you how I optimize my cat's lifestyle and how they did the same for me. This is about how our symbiotic relationships with cats can encourage lasting adoptions. You're probably wondering, okay, you got 10 cats in an apartment, but what does that have to do with us in the audience? And you're probably thinking, I understand that your cats were rescued or adopted, but how does this optimized cat lifestyle relate to the entire cat rescue community? Well, let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Melody, and I'm the mother of 10 rescued and adopted cats. Except for my older brother, no one else in my family was fond of animals when I was growing up. And members of the family regarded animals as being filthy, frightening, or just some subpar members of society, as if they were some disease-carrying pest. But they had no idea how is it ever possible that animals are my #1 source of happiness. My father always say, everything is negotiable as long as one is alive. Okay, that's a cool motto. So I ignored the first part of the family culture, the animal-hating culture, and adopted his motto as I got older. In applying that motto, I regularly rescue, adopt, and foster animals, but I have never really officially worked or volunteered at a sanctuary, nor have I been a member of any volunteer team at an NGO. However, in my personal network, I have built a sizable network over the years. All of my cats, after my first cat, were adopted from the SPCA, local individual volunteers, and personal friends. My first rescue involved one of my students discovering a moving soiled box with a wet and smelly cat inside, with a cracked voice during a typhoon number 10. Just so you know, typhoon number 10 in Hong Kong is really bad. And my speculation is that his voice is all messed up from meowing for help for God knows how long. And I immediately agreed to foster him, and he eventually became a permanent member of the family. But I didn't really feel like an actual rescuer, you know what I mean? Because I used to think of rescues as people going out on cars or collapsing buildings and fires or to drag out animals from wherever. Okay. Maybe it's too many sob stories I saw from YouTube, but that's how I saw it. And at the time, I didn't really feel like I was a rescuer, because I think of what? Firefighters? Heroes that are 100% altruistic. So me at this point, I'm like, nah, a cat just fell in my lap. It's just the right thing to do. But even though I know that cat rescues are not always like this, my mental image keeps returning to things like these, like the firefighter, the guy going up the tree, and yeah, people unclogging cats from the pipes. At this point, I went from 2 to 5 to 6 cats. As you can see, Sir Carlos is the 6th. Months passed and I began my 6-week summer vacation, traveling from Singapore to Malaysia to Thailand and Vietnam, basically vlogging about cats in various Southeast Asian countries. Until one day I noticed a tiny cat in a box on the sidewalk when I was in Malaysia, and the store employees left him in the box overnight, hoping that his mom would return. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. Wait a minute. that wasn't his mom. And when I picked him up, I found that he likely had been a victim of some sort of dog attack. And there's no way his mommy could heal him, even if she returned. And we checked too. She never came back. I'm going to show some pretty gruesome pictures. They are kind of blurred out, but yeah, just be aware. This was his wounds, and it didn't look good. On the left, his stomach was crawling with maggots inside the wound crawling out, and the wounds were just way too deep and way too substantial. So you can see all the flesh was stripped to the bone on the right, on the remaining part of his tail. This was my conversation with the vet. The vet goes, you have the option of euthanizing him or chopping off all of his remaining tail and let's just call it a day for the nasty wound. And I said, hey, why cut it off when the rest can be saved? Sorry, that's my cat in the litter box in the background. And the vet's like, well, that would take forever because tail wounds are difficult to heal. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If that was your son and that was his leg, would you have done the same thing to promote healing? Well, vet said, oh, well, that's different. I'm like, yeah, that's possible. I'd like to know what I can do to keep the rest of his tail, kind of like a second opinion. Well, the vet's like, well, yeah, that would be a long journey, and it won't be a smooth sail either. So I asked, will it cost him his life or cause him further nerve damage if we took the long route? Because here you're asking that we're chopping off an extension of somebody else's spine. And the response is like, well, that's hard to say. But of course, we don't know until we chop. However, what I know for sure is that it will cost you more time and more effort. And I said, okay, well, let's try that. And the response is like, that's insane. Why would you want to do that? So I just smiled and called it a day. At this point, I still don't really feel like a rescuer because anyone would have done this in this situation, right? But there seems to be a small hiccup, as my trip only involved staying in this country for 7.5 days. Therefore, I posted online and even asked strangers in the neighborhood for help. I posted a physical post printed out. Most of the answers I got revolved around the following. People are like, oh, there's so many street cats like this, don't bother. Or people are like, hey, with that money you spent trying to save him, you can get many cute cats from the store. I guess that's what they meant. Or they'll say, I can take him if you healed him first. Or some people just laughed at me because I was trying to spend time and money on something that, quote unquote, may die the next minute. Well, why am I doing this? In a nutshell, well, the trying part is very important, but also the critical period for like kitten socialization is about 2 to 7 weeks, and then 7 to 16 weeks, roughly.
This is a very important time of his life.
At the time, I didn't really decide to keep him, but I figured that if I can do what is needed for his socialization, for the betterment of that, it would make him a much more suitable pet in the future and less likely to be abandoned due to behavior issues, right? I'm so glad that my psychology knowledge was there when I needed it. Hey, can't say I didn't pay attention in class or university. And at this point, I kind of feel like a rescuer. Because there's nothing in it for me at this point other than losing 13 pounds and going on with a little sleep. But there's something else going on deep down inside, but I have no idea what it was. And frankly, I was too preoccupied to keep this guy alive at the time, so I didn't have much time to think about other stuff. But there's one small problem. Tiny little problem. No pun intended. You'll see. The smallest house he ever lived in was about 3,000 square feet. That's pretty big. Even the guest room was about 400 square feet. Now, Hong Kong apartments can be nice, but they're not known to have big places. And when I was still in Canada, I wondered, how can people fit 4 people in such a small place? I don't think you can. That would be abuse, right? Family of 4 living in 400 square feet. Abuse! Nope. But then after spending over a decade in Asia, yeah, I believe you can. If you look at Tokyo, New York City's downtown, I mean, how do they do it? So I thought to myself, isn't it true that Hong Kong is a vertical city for a reason? I mean, most of us live in skyscrapers, like 50 plus floors for the place where I've lived. Having a place that's over 1,500 square feet would be like a single house or a townhouse for the most part, or a very luxury apartment, putting you in a pretty darn rich bracket. And I'm assuming that's the top 5-10% of the population, and I'm not part of that. So the question is, how can I make my space in Hong Kong, in my Hong Kong apartment, okay? I guess, for a lack of a better word. My apartment was 419 square feet at the time, and according to Hong Kong standards, this flat can accommodate 3 to 4 people. In Hong Kong, it's known as a 2-bedroom apartment. So from his Malaysia experience, my Hong Kong place is literally the size of a guest room. By the way, this is my dad and my mom having fun with my cats. For somebody who despises pets, I think their views change a little bit too. Now, something must be done. So I began my research. My ceiling height isn't particularly low. And I was thinking, okay, in Hong Kong, bunk beds were used for children who had to share a room. So that's where I started. Bunks. And I was inspired. I didn't have much money, so I used the cheapest wall pegs and some hammocks I could find online, which are actually scratching posts that can go into the wall. If you look at these things, they're supposed to go perpendicular into the wall. And I got some wooden IKEA crates, and the window appeared to be an excellent location for a relaxing spot in case the cats were contending for the view from the floor or the couch. And upon installation, they absolutely loved it. Maybe I thought, okay, I can use, the space overhead in my hallway where no humans would go to on a day-to-day basis, but still easily accessible if something was to happen, say a fire. Eventually, we got creative, so the pillowcases became hammocks. And so far, hey, no complaints from the cats. And they climbed onto those as soon as we put them up and performed a final safety check. Bam. But I need to step up my game. Why? Because more space means more effort to retrieve them in case of emergency, and litter boxes. We too also used the vertical space. This is the place right behind the main door, and it fit perfectly. But that said, things got complicated really fast. Multiple cats means multiple cat chases, possibly fights sometimes, I'm anticipating, and what they're falling on if stuff happens. So in this case, they're falling onto the stars, which is my couch. And with more cats, we had something what I call a hammock freak accident, meaning that somebody was on the hammock and somebody bumped really hard from underneath, startled the cat on the top, somehow intertwined his arms on the wire, and when he landed, it just strangled his arm even further. And thank God I was at home, and that was saved. But otherwise, that was a strangling hazard because he can't save himself. The more weight he puts on it, the more it strangles his arm. So reinforce these piano wires with pretty much like a tubing so it doesn't coil. And the other thing is, my ceiling lights. It was a small earthquake or typhoon number 10 that's, waiting to happen, and things move and swing when you're on the 49th floor. The fragility of the lights were shown when they tried to paw at it. So therefore, with more cats, even if the space can be expanded by making good use of my vertical real estate, the equation got complicated fast. Now let's go back to Burrito for a second. Did I mention that for 14 months I took him everywhere so I could tend to his wound as his bandage fell off multiple times a day as he got more active? And I was given the option of doing this or chopping off his entire tail, including the salvageable parts, to promote faster healing. Of course I didn't do that. Instead, I took him everywhere. To make all of this work, I had to restructure my life. This meant carrying a first aid kit everywhere I went and laying it out on the go as needed. And sometimes that meant taking him to places that usually don't allow cats. Shh, I took him on the train. This is when I started seeing us doing things as a team. Well, was it troublesome? Yeah. But did I learn and improve our lives? Oh yeah. Did we create awesome memories along the way? Heck yes! At this point, I felt like I had transformed into a supermom. in a short period of time. Being a mom is one thing, but being a mom to a 2-week-old injured cat? Oh my goodness, that learning curve transitioned. Note to myself, keep my eyes on the prize, eyes on the prize. And while I was at it, I took a few cat first aid courses and enrolled in a number of other feline behavior and psychology certifications as I thought, hey, it's time to brush up on that existing psychology knowledge. Okay, is it weird at times taking him everywhere I went? Yes. Did we work out Awww? Of course. Perhaps frequently people ask, how did I train my cat to go to places, stand on my shoulder, cling onto my backpack? The answer is I did not. If you want something to work, everything will work together to achieve it. The most important factor is to have a goal in mind. And being able to take my cat out is really just a byproduct of his journey. Also, the motto still remains in effect. Everything is negotiable as long as one is alive. Because the goal was to heal his tail while keeping an eye on it, his cage rest for more than a year would be insane, with a cone of shame. The Cone of Shame 2.0 was also a part of his long road to his tail healing. The tail injuries took forever to heal, so I decided to attach the cone onto his bum. So that'll save him from some misery. I have a video on that on my YouTube channel, so you can reach out if you want to see that. All of this eventually became our lifestyle. Okay, by this point, most if not all of my decisions were made in the manner of a mother. No more messing around. No more silly mistakes. And surprisingly, people were a lot more accommodating than I thought. My clients understood and allowed me to bring him to work with me. And I discovered a lot of pet-friendly establishments. And this is quite surprising given that Hong Kong generally isn't known to be that pet-friendly. But because of the Burrito situation, I began my journey to learn how to effectively make things work, no matter how difficult, how impossible, or how crazy they might initially appear. By the way, Key's tail is okay. Look at his nubby tail. It's fine. We kept some of his tail. And he's got a girlfriend. He's in a stable relationship. Her name's Strawberry. It was one heck of a journey, but hey, it works. Right now, I'm definitely a lot more confident in dealing with the bigger cat and human issues after all this. And the added bonus is that he is a very sociable and confident cat due to his exposure to the world. But things didn't really stop there. When I go out, street cats and shop cats. Shop cats is a particular culture in Hong Kong when shops keep cats in there to catch mice. It's a symbiotic relationship to greet the customers. So they feed them, they give them shelter, and they basically live in these shops. It's kind of like indoor-outdoor cats for the most part. But these street cat, shop cats, they come out to interact with me. I like to think that they love me, but sometimes I think it's the traits that I have. But I feel that the community is also feeling this energy, and that somehow I became a source of support, information, or meat tubes. That's the treats that I feed them. The calls, the animals, and the people just began pouring in. And along with that, the certifications I received began to pile up as I began to equip myself more and more on a daily basis to handle what was coming in. If you look, this is Dora. She recovered from FIP. Yeah, this is a miracle. One of my neighborhood shop cats. This is Brother Dragon. He got burned from hot tar and he's healed. And this is Little Princess right here. She was a runaway cat. We helped them recover this cat. So just things like that. People started coming to me for answers. And I just found out ways to help them when I can. And humans also came to me when they need help with their cats or cats that they found. Like, it's from people I've never heard of, like to the nth degree. And yes, some calls were made to my house during the wee hours of the day. After all, people think the lady who lives in an apartment with 10 cats should have all the answers, right? Well, no, because I'm not a vet and I can't operate on your cat. But yes, I do know a thing or two about being a cat parent, as do all of you in the audience. And I can see why people contact me, and there seems to be a pattern with all these inquiries over time. It's that many problems are pretty much avoidable and predictable if you pay attention to the right things. Over time, my lifestyle became a model for the to-be cat parents, new cat parents, existing cat parents who are considering adopting or just adding more cats to their household. As the lady within cats, which is quite rare in Hong Kong, I became the middle person for potential adoptive families and rescuers. I understand the concerns and worries that rescuers have as they prepare to hand over, quote unquote, their child to another family. That's what I call these cats under our care. And I also understand the concerns that these potential families might have. And my job is to help anticipate what could happen in their journey. As a result, I've been coaching these families, and while I occasionally play the role of the rescuer and foster, I've discovered ways to address people's concerns while clarifying any misunderstandings each party might have of one another. And this is critical because this relationship must be established before the animals even have a fighting chance to get adopted. It's what people always say. It's usually a human problem. So these are just not just cats, but people abandon them. People just drop it off at my friend's door where we have to do something overnight, all sorts of stuff. They all went to happy families, by the way. Speaking of adoption, using Hong Kong as an example, the typical adoption protocol is like this. First, the rescuer captures and admits the cats, get them healthy, clears them for adoption or fostering. They go through a selection process based on home visits. Usually they look for home configurations. That's a must. They need proof of rental or ownership for the most part. And a lot of people object to this for privacy reasons. And another thing is the willingness to install window nets according to some very strict specifications, which is also a must. Many people are very opposed to this. It's a fire code violation, no view, aesthetics, looks like you're in jail. These has to be zip tied onto the window. Some people cheat by using hooks, but you can imagine they basically take it off after the home visit is done. But that's all to it at best. Post-adoption, they stay in touch and receive occasional photos or videos, but in the long run, there's very few updates until something bad happens. And at that point, that's when I get a phone call. In a nutshell, how suitable the family is for the cat is determined by their willingness for a home visit and to put these window nets on, which as I said, some people just simply zip tie it and they just yank it off after the people are gone. I've fostered many animals before, but when I hand them off to a new family, usually within my vast network of cat-loving friends, I still feel like I'm handing over my daughter to her husband, giving him her hand and saying, please make sure you'll love her unconditionally and give her the absolute best in your abilities so that she can have a great life. Yes, having a network of humans bonded by people in their cat-loving circles make it easy for them to find me if something happens, or if I want to know how my daughter is doing with her new life and family. Some of the things I'm thinking: was she well fed? Did she receive the medical attention she requires? Is she still a member of the same family? Was she able to get along with everyone? But does a part of me still worry about my child? Of course! I'm sure we can all relate to that. But of course, I know it's not anyone's job or authority to micromanage how someone raises their pets. To raise my daughter, in this case. However, there is a communication or knowledge gap or news update gap between when the kitty leaves the shelter or foster care and when something bad happens to them. Thus, the panic calls to my house at 4 a.m. As much as I love and adore animals, I recognize that we all must strike a balance. In this case, a delicate balance must be struck between several factors. Prospective adopters, privacy, and net installation, which is both labor-intensive and intrusive, versus purchasing pets, convenient and so-called pretty pets. Respect for human lives over micromanagement for the sake of animals, and also avoid telling people what to do, but also making sure that they're doing at least what is necessary for the general well-being of the animals and their care. I'm sure you can feel this as well, but I feel this every time. It's like, I don't want to micromanage or manage all this because I want to. It's because I want these animals to do well. And I genuinely care about them, even knowing that they're no longer with me. Knowing that there's never a perfect solution that works for everyone. I realize that what I've been doing has set an example for many in terms of what can be done given our circumstances here in Hong Kong. And for the most part, we live in apartments of 300 to 600 square feet, except for the rich folks and people in suburbs, which is rare. Typical work hours here for the average person is more like 9 to 7, not 9 to 5. That means if sleeping hours and doing chores are excluded, people don't spend a lot of quality waking time at home with their pets. For the most part, this means that we may spend little time with our pets during our waking hours at home. The common culture here is that because pets are generally considered as luxury items here in Hong Kong, because many people buy them. And many people lavish their pets with materialistic goods that are fancy on surface that serve little purpose without even realizing it. As a result, many people have the misconception that pets are expensive. Not that they're cheap, but it is not about stockpiling on the most expensive items that count. This misconception sometimes deters people who want to adopt because they believe that having a cat requires the same level of luxury. Disclaimer, my place is just like any average place. I live alone, I don't have a maid, and no, I am not rich. Because Hong Kong is a vertical city, I was very inspired to maximize my vertical space for the cat's well-being. Vertical space for cat comfort is something that vets and behaviors approved. See the DIY elements of my house? Despite the fact that I did not major in interior design, I was fascinated by the following concepts. This is my room, by the way. Products that serve more than one function, and where I can combine human and cat stuff together. Even better, I can save space and money. So you can see the first star goes to this perpendicular pegs. It's something that is reasonably priced. Second of all, this is something that serves more than one function. It's a hideout. It's a scratching post for them. And I use DIY stuff. It's burlap on top of that box. Pretty cheap, pretty convenient. And these are just cheap wooden boards that are sturdy with burlap on top. And also I like things that are long lasting. This is a bookshelf, so this serves a function for me, and it's a great shelf for them to jump on. I like to use everyday objects and items because many products made specifically for cats can be quite expensive, and I only buy them when absolutely necessary. But this way of life isn't for everyone. I'm not saying that people should do what I do or have 10 cats. It's not for everyone, but the setup of my house is commonly seen in cat cafes rather than in houses. In fact, I have more cats in a lot of cat cafes. People who come to my house frequently think it's either excessive or think it's a cat paradise. Someone once told me that my apartment is like Jennifer Lopez's butt. It looks great on her, but most people don't want plastic surgery for that. Perhaps they want a toned down version of what I have, but not necessarily all of the elements due to whatever reasons or constraints that I have, renting, perceived effort, spouses, etc., etc. As previously stated, it's not common for one person to have 10 cats in Hong Kong unless you are a foster or live in a house or have a shelter. It can easily be misunderstood as hoarding because most flats in Hong Kong is for one person or small families about 300 square feet. And the majority of cat families do not utilize vertical space. My apartment is nearly double the size and have a fairly high floor-to-ceiling height. Many people did not consider this, but leveraging this vertical space is what contributed to my cat's confidence and calm demeanor. It's not a coincidence. Not to mention that the house is a lot bigger to them than it is to me. What surprised me was not how many people are interested in what I can do with my flat and how they can incorporate some elements into their cat lifestyle. That is what surprised me. It is true that it provides insight and even debunks some of their concerns about having more than one cat in an apartment. It's a souped up and exaggerated depiction of what could be implemented in a cat family. In a way, you could call it scare tactics by starting big. Begin by presenting them with the most extreme scenarios and observing how they perceive themselves on this 1 to 10 cat spectrum. It's like saying this is our norm, and if this is not for you, then what is your norm? It gets people thinking and putting things into perspective. Okay, up to this point, you're probably wondering, okay, I optimize my space for my cats, but how about how they optimize it for me? What I've also learned is that when I tell people that it's not only a cat paradise, I think the fact that I have 10 cats, or even when I had less, has gotten me into a structure, a mindset, a routine that keeps me grounded. More on that later. Before answering that question, how about the human? Let's rewind. Let's go back to myself when I was a child. If you were to ask my younger self, being a cat parent felt like I had to find a way to make the cat fit into my lifestyle. And being in a family where nobody likes animals didn't help. Therefore, not a lot of bargaining power or independent thinking at that point. As a child, I didn't have the maturity, and the caretaking department was kind of immature, so my cat care meant nothing more than just playing, feeding, scooping. Not to mention that I believe that the majority of cute animals came from stores rather than the SPCA, which I didn't know existed. Given what I knew at the time, it would be a lie to say that when I got a pet, I considered it to be a member of my family, despite the fact that I loved cats. Never occurred to me. To me, the only way pets would benefit me is what they provide me in the entertainment department. You can say at that time as a child, I see them as a novelty. I didn't have what it takes to know what love truly was. Let's fast forward a few decades. By this time, I had many fosters, adoption, parents, volunteers, and cat parents come through our doors over the years. I've seen children as young as 2 and grandmothers as old as 80 plus benefit from this cat guardianship in ways other than companionship and a sense of accomplishment. And of course, the cute and fuzzy fun factor. For many of you in the audience, it might seem quite obvious. But when you see many animal rescue videos online, you often hear people say, I rescued this animal, but in turn, it is them that rescued me. In this case, I think it's very true. Also cliche, but true. But how exactly? Let's be honest. The ideal situation is that all cats to be adopted by deserving families will find them, they find each other, they will love all these cats unconditionally. Like a family member, for who they are, through thick and through thin, for the rest of their lives until death takes them apart. They should be there for each other in good and bad times. Am I kind of saying like wedding vows? Okay, I guess it kind of is. It's like, I'm handing my daughter to her future husband. That is the ideal. Okay? This is a quote that I saw from a Japanese movie called Quill from 2004. To you, they may be just a pet, but to them, you're their entire world. Many people don't see it that way, including my younger self. Kids are kids, and projecting into the future didn't cross my mind. And perhaps my definition of future wasn't exactly 15 or 20 years later. Now that I think about it, the concept of whoever is in whoever's world, I think about the symbiotic relationship, where both parties are each other's worlds. Now, when it comes to potential cat parents, what about the less altruistic humans? Or, I'm going to generalize, overgeneralize with lack of a better word, selfish people? Remember my daughter feeling that I see these animals as my daughter? Or son, I guess. There's only so much we can do to weed out those who raise red flags early on. Fortunately, when people see it as a symbiotic relationship, their willingness to stick with the relationship tends to increase. From my experience, it is best to give potential parents an accurate picture of the benefits and responsibilities that come with being a cat parent by emphasizing the benefit to the human, while briefing about the potential setbacks or burdens that comes with having pets overall. Sometimes it might hurt their egos or burst their bubbles a little bit, but I still think it's the right thing to do. And doing so allows them to experience what it's like to dive off the deep end, or to witness somebody like me diving off that deep end. Well, they must decide, well, are they ready to have cats, or pets yet? Are the cats are getting in terms of age, temperament, how traumatized they are, life experiences, etc.? Is it appropriate for the human's lifestyle? And how many can they have given their circumstances and resources? And whether or not they're having pets for the right reasons overall. All right, let's go back to the earlier question. To answer that, how about the human question? When people learn about my lifestyle, some fall in love with it, others claim they're not prepared for it. But for me, the work does come with some perks. Ha, that rhymes. My cat lifestyle involves the following, and I call it work with perks. Every month, I have to make sure that I have enough ka-ching money for their insurance for medical expenses, money that could have gone to other luxurious human items or unnecessary human items. As a result, I have a simpler, less materialistic lifestyle and spending money on things that matter. And it helps me put things into perspective when I'm about to squander. It also means that no matter how tired I am, I will commit to the following. Sticking to my cleaning and feeding schedules, very strict, and partying recklessly is completely out of the question. I have the discipline to keep things clean as soon as possible. There's no room for procrastination or putting things off. No dirty dishes in the sink, no messes uncleaned at home. You get it. And therefore, you can tell the hygiene standards have climbed. And of course, all cat health routines must be abided to groom, to play, medical checkups, supplementation, deworming, vaccinations, etc., etc. I need to be the responsible parent who don't neglect my children in order to slack off. In terms of the human, that's me. The human physical health must be taken care of because if I'm not healthy, I am in no place to take care of them. That is my promise, my pledge to not neglect myself for the sake of my cats and my family. There's definitely no rehoming unless I die or become a vegetable. As dramatic as it sounds, that is what I pledge to. And I will make things work financially and logistically. How? Just like how parents make it for their children, right? We don't have the exact clear path, but we know how to make it work because the goal is defined. I also push myself to keep improving as my cat parenting skills need to improve over time. And if you think about it, a lot of parents do this for kids, the kids that they have. I'm no different. If you plug in the word children instead of the word cat in the previous 5 minutes of my sharing, it's not that weird, even if you tell other parents that don't like animals. The term cat parent is not to be taken lightly in this case. And even if I ask my animal-hating parents, if you substitute cats for humans in those preceding points, they're like, yeah, it's not so strange, that's what everyone does. Anyway, not the topic of today's discussion. And when people see what I do, they begin to see how there's obligations, but as I fulfill them, I've become a much more organized, composed, responsible, and efficient person. You can say that my results, the benefits I'm reaping is on steroids. 10 cats, 10 times the benefits. I understand that everyone has a slightly different definition of what these parental duties are, although some are quite universal. And we all fall on a spectrum in that regard. One person's norm, maybe somebody's excessive, and vice versa. I think there should be moderation in all things, as they say. It's never a good idea to have too much or too little of anything. And in my case, 10 cats were pretty normal and pretty affordable. By now, it appeared that my lifestyle shed light for some people who needed a reference to see what it's like and how it's done before attempting something similar on their own. People frequently ask me, when I'm going to get my 11th cat? Well, the answer is when the opportunity arises. And when I'm able to afford it, time-wise, monetary-wise, space-wise. And you can say that it's my motivation to constantly and consistently improve as a cat parent. And contrary to popular belief, being a mother of 10 cats has significantly improved my quality of life. I spend my money on things that are important to me. I developed a large network of cat-loving people whom I support and they support me as well. And I feel much more complete in the presence of cats. They definitely provide me with a routine and exercise just by keeping everything tidy and in place. Overall, I believe I have the discipline I require, as well as the satisfaction that comes from my symbiotic relationship with cats. And I'm going to end on a quote that I say all the time. Saving cats won't change the world, but I change that cat's world. I invite all of you in the audience to talk to your next adoptive parent or potential adoptive parent about my journey and encourage them to have a similar in-depth conversation with themselves about how many kids they want to have for kids while becoming the parent they want to be. Or, in your vetting process, integrate some of these elements if you haven't already. I hope my story will provide some encouragement and insight for them. And I'm more than happy to make anyone's parenting journey easier by sharing what I've learned along the way, all the nitty-gritty details of my cat lifestyle management. It's documented in a few hours, so feel free to reach out. Before the Q&A, I'd like to say thank you and applaud to everyone who's been listening today. And I know that you've all been doing similar things for these kitties' betterment by focusing on your area of expertise and giving cats what they need to have a great life at different stages of their lives or their rescue journey. I just really want to applaud to that. And I would be very delighted to assist you in any way, so please do not hesitate to contact me at any time. Just want to say thank you again. My name is Melody, also known as MeloCat. This is how you can find me. Thank you so much, and I open the floor to questions.
Thank you. That was great. And I definitely recommend folks check out MeloCat on Instagram. I'm sure Facebook and YouTube are equally as beautiful as your Instagram page. And I was trying to remember how I found you. And I think it might have been through Instagram that I found you.
Is that how you found me?
I
went to a few of your talks. So we communicate there as well.
Back and forth. Yep. And so, unfortunately, we are a bit tight on time. Most everybody has said everything looks great. You've just provided all your contact information. So people were looking for that. And pretty much, yeah, everybody was just, I think, enjoying the beautiful slides and the show. I'm going to just check my panelists, see if they have any questions. Doesn't look like anybody.
Maybe just one or two. Any pressing questions?
Oh, we're going to do a little tour. Let's do a little tour, and then I think we'll close.
This is my place. I could do that in a separate one, but yeah, this is basically my living room. So you can actually see that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's pretty much a kitty paradise.
It is wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And thank you so much. Oh, how is Burrito's tail now?
Oh, he's great. It's a nubby tail, so we actually get to keep almost all of it. So at the end, they had to get rid of just some tissue that never healed. But basically, we get to keep 90% of the part that we saw in that picture. And he's in a stable relationship.
Who did the airbrush of you and Burrito?
Oh, that is a very famous illustrator in Singapore. He's one of my earlier followers of my channel, MeloCat. His name is Danny Goh. His last name is Goh. He's very famous in the industry. All the illustrations that you see on my channel are actually made by him, even these cute little logos.
Fantastic. Excellent. Excellent. Well, MeloCat, I want to thank you so much for joining us and being part of the online cat conference.